All right, we've got Tank's Green Stuff here to share a little bit about soil amendments and mulching. Hello, Shota.
Hi, how's it going?
Thanks for joining us.
No worries, thanks for having us out. So we're going to start off with just a little background of Tank's Green Stuff. Tank's Green Stuff is a division of the Tanks Fairfax Companies. The Tanks Fairfax Companies is a family-owned business. Originally started back in the 80s by purchasing aggregate pits and doing land reclamation projects where they backfill the pits with inert material like concrete, rock, asphalt, dirt, and other inert materials as a land reclamation project. So you take a hole, you fill it up with material, you bring it back to grade, and then you can use that land again for warehouses, neighborhoods, communities, and schools, etc. Somewhere along the way, the Fairfax companies acquired the Speedway landfill recycling facility, which is just down the street from here. And in about 2010, 2011, Jason, the current owner, had been exploring options for diverting materials from his landfill. So they were doing cardboard, metal, wood, plastic, kind of your standard recyclables. And we're looking at organic material or landscape debris as another material that they could divert from their landfill recycling facility. So they started composting. There's quite a bit of competition out there in the world for compost and trying to sell compost as a material. So what we've done is decided to go, instead of producing a bunch of compost that's super cheap, we try and produce as much compost that we can that it's the highest quality material that we can possibly produce. So the backbone of our product line is the Tank's Green Stuff Organic Compost, which is an OMRI listed organic product. It's much different than what you might find in other bags sold at other stores. And that's because we screen this material to a 1/4 inch minus, and we're composting it for over 120 days at above 131 degrees Fahrenheit. So a pretty intense process to create this super fine material. So what you'll notice with our compost is that the bag, this 1 cubic foot bag, doesn't weigh 25 pounds, it weighs 45 pounds. And that's because it's all fines, it's all humus and goodness. So if you look at my hands, you got the humus on it, which is the nitty gritty, the wonderful, beautiful fines of compost, and that's what makes compost truly amazing. So our compost, compared to other products, is something that you can't plant directly into because the nutrient and mineral density of the material is much higher than some of the decomposed forest products or forest mulch or composted forest products out there. This must be used as a soil amendment. So this material is either added to existing gardens. You can use it for new in-ground gardens as you till it into the native soil to add some organic material. And we use it in all of our mixes. This is something that you could add to your garden every so often. The general rule of thumb of adding it to an in-ground garden is adding as much as the soil has depreciated or sunken in. So if you add like 3 inches every year and your soil is not sinking 3 inches every year, it will start to climb and build up. This is the Tanks Pro planting mix, and this is the premium version. So this is the Super Pro planting mix, the one that we put in the bags. So the bulk version that's super popular has native screen soil in it. This doesn't, because we feel that it's a little silly to put native screen soil in a bag and add that extra weight. So that's this mix here. So this is a blend of compost, decomposed pine, cocoa chip, cocoa peat, perlite, and a little bit of super mix organic fertilizer. This is great for large containers, so anything over like 5 gallons. I tend to go with the Tanks Pro planting mix. And you can use this as is, or you can buy bags of this and add your own native soil to your various desire. That can help keep the cost down. Or you can purchase the bulk mix, which is $90 a cubic yard, where this bag here sells for $16, and like if you were to buy this mix in bulk, it's $185 a cubic yard. This is called the Tanks Pro potting mix. This is an OMRI listed product, and this is great for containers somewhere between small and like 5 to 10 gallons. Once you get above 5 to 10 gallons, we recommend going with the Pro planting mix, and that's because this has got cocoa chip in it, as well as per cubic foot it's going to be cheaper. And what the cocoa chip does and the additional perlite in this mix gives you better drainage, and you can fight the compaction. The bigger the container is, the more weight is on the soil, so the more compaction you have in the container. So the bigger the container, go with the Pro planting mix. The smaller the container, you can go with the Tanks Pro potting mix, which, as you can see, is a super nice, super beautiful material. It's cocoa peat, perlite, and compost, and drains super well, holds moisture like nobody's business. I guess as good a time as any to talk about why we use cocoa coir instead of peat or peat moss or sphagnum peat, Dakota peat, all the peats. Once peat dries out, it will no longer have the moisture holding capacity that it once did. So here in Arizona, where it's likely that you're going to dry everything out, at one point you're going to forget to water it, at one point the irrigation's not going to be working properly. Once that happens, you're kind of done. The cocoa or the Dakota peat or peat moss or sphagnum peat is useless. It's never going to hold moisture the same way it did. Where cocoa coir, you can rehydrate it and dry it out, and rehydrate it and dry it out a bazillion times, and it's going to continue having the same moisture holding capacity. One of the things we recommend, especially with new gardens, is you can add compost, which is great. You should definitely add compost, but it's also important to consider adding some additional nutrients, and that's where something like the Super Mix organic fertilizer comes in. And this is our compost-based fertilizer. It's a 2-2-1, so it's super mild. It gives the plants a little something right at the beginning, but what we're really doing with this is we're putting an Ace Hardware store in the soil for the soil microbiology to go shopping at, so they can take nutrients or raw ingredients out of the soil, process them, and pass them along to the plant as needed. So the Super Mix is designed to feed the plants, feed the soil microbiology, and then provide the resources in the soil for the soil microbiology to continue feeding the plants long term. So the Super Mix is great because you can use it on anything, indoor or out, cactus, succulents, fruit trees, veggie gardens, and it's really hard to kill stuff with it. So this is a great product you can use year round. This is the AgriGrow Ultra. This is a prebiotic fertilizer that we sell, and this is great. The biggest win with this material we found, or this product, is that when you're establishing a new garden, especially if you're adding a raised bed garden or you've got fallow land and you're adding compost to it, it takes anywhere from 6 months to 18 months to establish healthy soil microbiology. So when you ramp your soil microbiology up to 10 or 11 and you're maxing out and you have the most productive soil microbiology you possibly can, your plants are going to deal with stress better. They're going to have increased nutrient uptake. You're going to have less transplant stress, less heat stress, and they're going to fight off any pests or viruses or pathogens much better. So the AgriGrow Ultra does that. It doesn't have any existing NPK value. It's not a fertilizer in terms of nutrients. It's not a fertilizer in terms of there's little microbiology in this. This is simply nutrients for beneficial microbiology. So this is like 5-hour energy for the bugs that are in the soil on the root. And what this does is, instead of taking 6 to 18 months to establish soil microbiology, you can do that in a couple of weeks. So it makes all the difference in the world on just keeping plants happy, especially as it gets warmer. You know, if the plants deal with stress better, then they'll continue to produce as it gets hotter. And so we really recommend this. We've seen trials using in like cannabis production where transplant success for clones goes from 40% to 70%. We have people using it for turf, where they've seen their turf warranty claims go down by 90% with the use of the AgriGrow Ultra. So it really helps with establishing plants, and it's great. You can use it on all types of landscapes. So if you have struggling plants throughout your landscape, you can just use a little bit, and this jug goes a long way. So this little jug here retails at about $30 and will do 32,000 square feet and has a shelf life of 4 years. So if I was getting ready to do a new garden or establish a new garden or rehabilitate a garden this next season, I would go into my garden, I would add a little compost, I would add a little Super Mix fertilizer, I would give it a nice soil drain. One of the things that we always don't consider here in Arizona is that everything is alkaline and everything is mineral rich, right? So you have your soil that's mineral rich, you have your water that's mineral rich, and so if you're irrigating shallowly, in a shallow setting where you're irrigating just 6 inches of soil month after month, week after week, you get accumulated salts in that soil layer, and what that does is it increases the salt toxicity and can be detrimental to young plants, young seedlings, or inhibit things like flowering and fruiting. So doing a soil flush is something that I would recommend everybody do every so often, making sure you're just watering it low, slow, and deep letting the water pull the accumulated salts through the root zone and out through the bottom. And then I would, throw a little super mix on, do some applications of AgriGrow Ultra, and that would be my general soil prep recommendation. Now, if you have a raised bed garden, or specifically a raised bed garden where your soils drop more than an inch or two, I wouldn't recommend adding 2 or 3 inches of compost to a raised bed garden. Right, our goal with the compost is to use it at no more than 50% of any given mix. So if you're anywhere above 2 inches and I need to add 3 inches to my raised bed garden, highly recommend that you go with something like the Tanks Pro planting mix, the ready to go blend. That way you're not adding too much compost all at once and creating kind of a density issue, right? Like if you were to add 3 inches of compost and then you kind of lightly till it in, you don't want to mess it too much, and then you have this little thick layer of compost at the top, and you put your seeds right into that compost, that first 3 inches needs to be less than 50% compost, and that's why we recommend adding this. This is the inch by inch worm castings. This is made by Michael over at Inch by Inch in Tucson, Arizona. So we package them up for them and distribute it, and so this package is available at some of the local retailers. And what this is going to do is enzymes. It's going to introduce beneficial enzymes and microbiology into your garden. It's going to improve your soil texture, your soil drainage, aeration, and structure, increase your water holding capacity. So this is another product that I'd highly recommend throwing in. So this is our Tanks Pro Light Seeding and Potting Mix. So it's another cocoa soil product. This is specifically designed for tiny containers, really small containers, and then young plants, especially seedlings. So if you're doing some seed starts, this is the mix to go with. Compared to the regular Tanks Pro, it's a lot lighter in color, has a lot less compost in it, so there's a lot less nutrient density to keep those young plants super happy. So this is our indoor plant soil, great for tropicals, things like Hoya, snake plants, all your real indoor plants. And this we designed with a Tucson original plant influencer, Becca Della Plants. This is one of our most popular products. So if you do any house plants, it's a great mix, available at local retailers as well. And then this is our cactus and succulent mix. This was designed with the help of the Tucson Cactus and Succulent Society, and this is one of our most popular mix. Our mixes, both the Della Tanks houseplant mix and the cactus mix, are different from the competition because we don't use any peat. And if you look at the mixes, they're super chunky. And what this does for the mixes is that we use a lot of cocoa chip and a lot of pumice and just a little bit of compost. And what this does is it provides tons of aeration and drainage and good soil structure. So if you were to go to the store and buy something that says cactus and succulents or cactus, palms, and citrus, chances are what you're going to get is a real peat-based mix that is quickly going to decompose and compress on the roots, right? And the number one issue with houseplants and cactus tends to be root rot. As the soil compacts, there's less air space and less aeration, and then you have too much water, and then the roots don't have enough air, they rot out and the plant dies. Right, that's the most common issue, and that's something you just don't get with our mix because the cocoa chip and the pumice give it really strong soil structure, so it doesn't compress and sink as quickly, and it continues to provide a soil that's aerated, drains well. At the same time, the cocoa chip creates little pockets of moisture. So like if I squeeze this here, you'll see right, tons of water comes out of the cocoa chip. So if the plants want water, there's water there. This is the Bud Super Soil. So this is our hemp specific product line. And this is our living soil version. We also have a cocoa mix called Bud's Basic Cocoa Blend, which is just cocoa core and perlite. So it's ready to go to add all your own amendments or whatever you're doing. You can just take that, it's kind of our blank canvas. And then we also have the Bud Super Cocoa, which is the same blend of cocoa core and perlite with a little bit of our super mix organic fertilizer. So whatever style you're growing, we've got a hemp mix for you. And we'll move on to our mulches. So most common is our Tanks Green Stuff, small decorative wood chips, which is available in bags and in bulk. And that's what this material is here. It's super fine, it's a 1/2 inch minus. It's a really small decorative wood chip. We don't use any additives or dye. This product, we hand sort the logs out of the landscape trimmings that come to our product, or that come to our facilities, and we grind them and screen them. And so this one The small decorative wood chips, great for established plants, shrubs, pathways, walkways, if you're just looking to mulch your whole yard, or trees. We also sell this version here. This is the large decorative wood chips. This is a 3-inch minus. So this is more common for rainwater harvesting basin, large trees, anywhere where you're not going to be messing with the soil a whole lot and you want something that's going to last longer. So like this is going to last significantly longer than the small decorative wood chips, and the uses of these two products are very interchangeable. Just kind of depends on your preference and whether or not it's a walking surface. So that's the small and large decorative wood chips. One thing for the community gardens at Tucson is don't use decorative wood chips in the garden, right? You can use decorative wood chips on your pathways. You can use decorative wood chips on your trees, your fruit trees, shrubs, surrounding area, but don't use decorative wood chips in the actual garden. The reason being is that this is all carbon, right? There's just carbon, carbon, carbon. So what do you use when you're in a garden bed for a mulch? So this is a byproduct of our organic compost production. When we're screening the compost, we're screening it to a 1/4 inch minus. So we get a lot of oversized pieces. What we do with the oversized pieces is we grind them and rescreen them, and we get this material here, which is composted fine mulch. And this is meant for top dressing raised bed gardens, in-ground gardens, containers, veggies. And the reason we recommend this over the decorative wood chips is that, first of all, it's guaranteed to be weed free because it's been through the composting process, so there's no seeds in it. It's inoculated with all the same beneficial microbiology that we use to inoculate our compost. And it's a smaller particle size, and because it's inoculated with all those beneficial microbiology, it's going to break down much quicker. So opposed to putting wood chips in the garden, which is going to add carbon, this is going to break down over the course of a growing season, and then you can just incorporate this broken down mulch into the soil surface, and it basically becomes compost over that time period in which you're growing. So this is what I really love for my gardens. I also really like this for walking paths. The the Tucson Botanical Garden uses this particular material for some of their permeable pathways, and because it's inoculated with the beneficial microbiology and the small particle size, it meshes together really well. So once you lay the material out and it gets some rain on it, the beneficial microbiology, the fungi start to mat together, and you get a really nice surface that you can roll wheelbarrows on, you can roll wheelchairs on, you can walk on barefoot. So this material is one of my favorites for just its utility in the garden, because you can just put it on anything and you're going to be covering and contributing to your soil health long term. So yeah, composted fine mulch, pretty fantastic material. A little bit on the dusty side, but once you get it wet, lay it down, it's going to be beautiful. So yeah, that's all the products. That's the big spiel.